So the first part of the process is really like how are you talking to yourself? How do you feel when you put clothes on? How do you feel when you sit down to eat food? And let's just first bring this up into awareness. And it's not going to feel good. It's probably going to feel uncomfy, but until we can like get those out and really look at them, and we can't really move forward. So we have to know where we're starting from. When you can balance out the calories and the macros, you feel better, and then you don't have these restrictions that are like weighing you down when you're making food decisions. And if you're a busy mom or a busy dad and you're out and about, you don't have your food with you, you can go through a drive-through and get something and feel okay about eating it.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Julie Hawley, and I am so excited today to be joined by my good friend, Ashley Beeman. Ashley came into my life by way of another friend of ours, a mutual friend. And she came to the Conscious Investor Growth Summit, hit the stage, knocked it out of the park, created transformation, because that's what Ashley does. She is one of the most incredible people to follow over on social media. So if you're not following the Ashley Beeman already, you're going to want to do that. And if you're not driving, you can actually do that while you're listening right now. So head on over to Instagram, the Ashley Beeman, and follow her work. It's going to make a lot of sense. But one of the things that I just cherish about everything Ashley does, she is in the health and fitness space. And what I love is her transparency with her journey. I love her common sense approach, because I was raised, you've heard me say it, like moderation, don't worry about things too much. And so I know you'll appreciate this, Conscious Investor, but one of my favorite posts of many is like, she steps on a scale after Thanksgiving and she's like, "So you ate your weight in Thanksgiving." Like, okay, did you have a good time? Did you connect with your family? Because that's what it's about. That's the purpose, right? Like, she's just so common sense. One day's not going to screw you up. Get back to it. It'll be fine. Enjoy life. And so I love enjoying life, and I don't like too many ridiculous restrictions, especially when it comes to food. And so I'm like, man, Ashley, you are knocking it out of the park. So before we dive into our actual conversation with Ashley today, I want to invite you, Conscious Investor, come to the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. We have such another stellar lineup. I would have invited Ashley back. I always want speakers to come back, but I try to keep a fresh lineup year after year. And so she'll be back in the future. Don't worry. I have already earmarked her for coming back in the future. But this year she's not coming back, but there's another crazy awesome speaker lineup prepared for you. It's such a great opportunity for you to come, connect, create meaningful relationships, learn, expand, and grow. Because if you're just trying to get all of the technical things about real estate investing or building wealth, you're going to end up with a bankrupt life. It's just not going to work. You need to build out life holistically. You want to make sure you have your health. You want to make sure that your spirituality is in check, that your relationships are healthy, that you yourself are ready for that next level. Okay. So head on over to consciousinvestorgrowthsummit.com, secure your ticket, and let's hang out. Ashley, so freaking excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And I want to plug your event too, because I'd never been to a real estate event before, ever, until you invited me to yours. And I learned so much, not just about real estate, but I love how you take like an all-encompassing approach to the event. And it's really, really great. So everybody should go.
Oh, thank you. I agree. I do think this is such a great event for couples, and even if you have teenagers and such. There's just a lot of really cool things going on, and you don't want to miss it. So, Ashley, I could wax on to the Conscious Investor about all the things I love, but we really want to hear from you, the expert. And so I need to ask the question that I always lead with, and that is, what do you do and how did you get started?
So I am a personal trainer, online personal trainer and nutrition coach. And it's kind of a long story about how I got started, but I will dive into it and share it with you. So back in 2011, I had my first son, and I was really determined to lose that baby weight. Like, I had put all my worth into my body, and I was willing to go to lengths to do this. And at that time, I jumped into the health and wellness space, and I started on my own journey helping other women. But I really kind of went down the wrong road, and I just really got stuck in this cycle of yo-yo dieting for about 10 years. And it came to a point where I felt so frustrated I couldn't do it anymore. I'm like, I don't like myself. I Every time I sit down to eat, I have this shame and this guilt and all of these feelings. And I just wanted to feel okay in my body. And at that time, I decided that if I was feeling this way, there's no way that I could help other people. And I actually stopped coaching in the health and wellness field. I stepped out and I said I would never come back. Well, through the process of me healing my relationship to my body, healing my relationship to food, I got to a point, I actually ended up gaining 60 pounds through that process, where I was ready to lose the weight again. And I said, this time I'm going to do it different. I had no intentions of sharing it on social media. At this time, I was helping people with content. I was doing a little bit of life coaching, kind of just trying to find my way the the coaching world, because I really did like working with mindset. But I finally lost that 60 pounds, and I lost it in the most simplest way ever. And I was mind blown that I never yo yo dieted, that I lost the weight and I didn't have to like give up and I didn't feel restricted and I was able to live my life. Eventually, I went on to do some bikini competitions, and through that process, everybody just kept asking me what I was doing. I just kept getting pulled back, and pulled back. And finally, I realized that I had the answer to help women to stop the cycle of yo-yo dieting, which is so frustrating, and I couldn't keep it in any longer. And so just jumped back in and started helping people. And ever since I did that, it's just been a really amazing experience to be able to help women get out of that frustration of losing the weight, gaining it back, losing it, gaining it back, and really helping them lose it and keep it off for life, really.
Your journey is so relatable, and you don't have to be a woman to relate to this. Like, that the gentlemen out there also go through a lot of challenges with their bodies, and I think that men are facing more pressure now than in historical past times about their body images and such. And so this is going to land for, regardless of if you're, a man or a woman. Like, man, these truths are going to hold. Something that has really struck me about your journey, Ashley, is that you talk on a regular basis on the social channels about healing your relationship with your body, healing your relationship with food. Can you walk us through what was that relationship and what was the healing process, and then what does that look like now on the other side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I talked about in 2011, I had my first son, and you prepare for the baby and all of the things. You're reading the books, you're buying all the stuff. Your body is changing. And I mean, I realized that, but I just didn't really prepare for what my body was going to look like afterwards. And I it hit me like a ton of bricks, like, "Oh my gosh, like, I don't even know who this person is. I don't feel good. I don't want anybody to see me." And so I just started to put my worth into the way that my body looked.
Mhm.
And I thought that if I could get my body smaller, that I would have a better life, that I would be happy, I would make more money. I thought my marriage would be better. Not that it wasn't that it was bad, but I just thought that if my body was smaller, everything would be better. But it didn't matter how small my body got. It was never enough. I was never happy. I went down a road of disordered eating, of stimulant addiction. And once I started to overcome my stimulant addiction, I started to just realize that this is no way to live. Like, I can't keep putting my worth into what my body looks like because I'm uncomfortable all of the time and I don't have any confidence. Even though I had people telling me like, "Oh, you look great," and like, "How are you doing it?" All of I would spiral because I'm like, I don't want to tell anybody how I'm doing this because I'm not eating and taking a bunch of Adderall and I'm miserable. Like, I feel like I'm dying inside.
Mhm.
And so with that, I became very afraid of food and I started to have all these food rules. And I would, every time I would sit down to eat, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? Is this clean? Is it not clean? Is it organic? All of these things. And it just got to a point where I couldn't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And so my healing journey was a little unconventional and I probably wouldn't suggest it for everybody. But I've gone through it so I can help other people go in a different route. But I literally just stopped doing everything. I had to break all of the rules that I had tied up into those two things because we have a relationship with everything that we interact with. And so I started to buy clothes in bigger sizes that I felt comfortable in. And I just stopped dieting. I stopped like saying food was good and bad, clean and dirty, all of the things. And I just ate. And I think for like the first 3 months, I had buttered noodles every night for dinner.
I
And
love
I probably haven't,
it. I got to make up for lost time here. I missed you, butter noodles.
yeah, like a child, right? I probably haven't had buttered noodles since, to be honest. But that was the process is I had all of these unspoken rules and I had to break them. And I one day I woke up, I was 60 pounds heavier, but I was happy. I was confident. I felt better than I'd ever felt other than my health was taking a toll. I have hypothyroid and Hashimoto's. So I needed to do something about that, but I came from such a different space. It was from a space of I love my body. I feel good and I feel confident within myself. And so I could move towards the weight loss rather than the guilt, the shame, and tying everything to that number on the scale.
Okay, thank you for pausing there for a moment because I'm like, "Oh, so good. This is so important." So you were saying, "Hey, this isn't how I'd recommend necessarily doing it. This is how I did it." How would you recommend, someone who struggles with, body image issues? And by the way, conscious investor, go over to Ashley's Instagram page, right? The Ashley Beeman, and I'm going to keep drilling that in because I'm not actually on social media that often, and when I am, I always go check out what Ashley's doing because it's always so life-giving, so we head over there, but she has this one post that I love, Ashley, and it's a picture of you when you're probably, 60 pounds lighter, maybe even more than that, and then it has a picture of you that's probably the extra 60 pounds or something, and the thinner version of you is you labeled it miserable, thin and miserable. And then the other picture, and I might be doing this a disservice, but the other picture says like happy, like I'm happy. And so like our shell, our outside doesn't tell the whole story of how our emotions are actually engaging the world. And it's one of my favorite posts is that like just the dichotomy between the two of them. So when you think about those people that are like, the thinner, unhealthy patterns, unhealthy relationship with food, unhealthy relationship with our body. And she coaches on this. So I'm going to be mindful. We're not going to give away all the tools of the trade here. So like go coach. But what are some of the things that you encourage your coaching clients when they are struggling with those? And how do you instruct them and help them gain that healthy body image and healthy relationship with food?
Yeah. So the first thing that I would say is awareness is the catalyst that heals all. So a lot of times we don't even realize we're having these thoughts. We just might just like feel irritated and not okay, but we don't realize what we're saying over and over and over again in our heads. So the first part of the process is really like how are you talking to yourself? How do you feel when you put clothes on? How do you feel when you sit down to eat food? And let's just first bring this up into awareness. And it's not going to feel good. It's probably going to feel uncomfy, but until we can like get those out and really look at them and we can't really move forward. So we have to know where we're starting from. And along those lines of like the things that you're saying to yourself, like I was talking about with my journey is these unspoken rules. What kind of rules do you have? Like, I can only wear this shirt when I feel skinny or I'm not bloated, or I can only eat this food when I'm being bad, or I don't know, I'm coming up with random things off the top of my head, but a lot of people
These
will
are
have,
relatable.
yeah, these unspoken rules, or I'm not going to eat anything all day because we're going to go out tonight and I'm going to eat this and this and this or drink this or whatever it may be. What are those unspoken rules that you have so that we can shift them and actually break them? That's part of the process that I would say is, having people do the things that they don't feel comfortable doing, because that's really going to start to build up some self-trust within you.
Yeah, go breaking those rules. I like it. I mean, this is the healthy time to break the rules. Breaking is good, but these are unhealthy rules that keep us trapped.
Yeah. That's what I like to say. I like to say that rules don't keep us safe, they keep us stuck.
I love that. And we both are in parts of the country where I think we're a little against having too many rules in our life. So
Yeah.
I want to go in a lot of different directions with our conversation. And so before I squirrel off into another direction, I want to circle back and say, what else do we want to say on this topic?
I think just having patience with yourself and realizing that it's a process that probably is never going to end. Like the body image is going to go up and down. The feelings about food is going to go up and down. But when you start to cultivate that awareness, you're able to shift through those things a lot quicker. And you're able to be like, okay, you know what? That's actually not the truth. This is the truth. Like we were talking about the Thanksgiving post, going back and really focusing on like what were the best memories from Thanksgiving? What did you enjoy eating? Like, are those actually all bad things? Just because the scale is up doesn't mean you gained a bunch of weight, first and foremost, but really just moving through that and having patience with yourself, and knowing that it's going to be an ongoing process, probably for a real long time.
So good. It is an ongoing process. In fact, your process has been like 4.5 years of, hey, I've kept this 60 pounds off for 4.5 years without all the nonsense. So
Yeah.
you ditched all the things. How did you even come to that decision to like, I'm not doing supplements, I'm not worrying and labeling food, I'm not worrying about this, all the rules are now broken. Like, was that the end point of breaking the rules and then you started losing the weight, or
Yeah. So I actually was introduced to a book called The Effort Diet. I don't know if
okay.
you've heard of it before. And this was really a time where anti diet and body positivity was really big. So I like to say, this is why I said at the beginning that I wouldn't recommend doing what I did, because basically what I did was I call this pendulum. I went from one extreme over here to really, really deep in diet culture, doing things that I'm not proud of, to swinging way over to the other side and going to the extreme in that point. So, but I will say that I've learned so much from both of those extremes that it's allowed me to find this like magical middle gray area. There were rules on both sides of the extreme. So I remember when I first decided that I was ready to lose weight, I was so afraid to buy a scale. So part of the rules in this anti-diet space was you're not allowed to want to lose weight. You're not allowed to want to step on a scale. You were bad if you wanted to do that. And luckily, I have really amazing people in my life. And I remember kind of like crying to my friend, like, I'm in a really good headspace right now. And I think that I can tackle this weight loss, but I'm not supposed to want to order a scale. And she's like, Ashley, this is your life and you get to do whatever you want to do. And I was like, oh, okay. Immediately got on Amazon, ordered the scale. And I was so excited when that scale came. Like, I don't think I've ever been so excited to step on a scale before. And I opened it in the middle of the living room and stepped on it. Highest number I've ever seen in my entire life, probably even higher than when I was pregnant, but I was so happy. And so I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to commit to showing up for myself for 365 days. I want to learn how to track macros, and nothing is off limits. We're going to take this day by day, hour by hour if we need to. But no matter what happens, we're going to pick ourselves up and we're going to keep going. And that first year, I lost 25 pounds. It wasn't 25 pounds in 12 weeks, it was 365 days.
right?
And And then I said, oh, okay, well, I'll commit for another year. And the next year I lost another 25 pounds. And at that point, I'm like, oh, this is a lifestyle. Like I'm easily doing this and I don't feel like I'm restricted. So I kind of went from both extremes to finding what I like to call my magical little gray area.
I love that. I absolutely love that. And I love that even on your socials, you're always like, don't do the whole lose 10 pounds in 12 weeks or what. Just the yo-yo, the up and down. Don't do it. It's not worth it. And I completely agree. And so that's really what, like, that permission, that awareness, that clarity, and I don't have to have all of this congestion in my head about what's right, what's wrong, good or bad with the food, which takes me into, I love watching you grocery shop. I know that sounds crazy, conscious investor, but she's like, you can go grocery shopping with Ashley. She's like, we're on our food haul. And it's like one of my favorite posts because you're getting normal food. And one time you put in the cart some type of, so what everyone's going to label as soda, right? Like whatever it is, but you like picked it up and you like put it in the cart and you put some cookies in the cart and you put some milk in the cart and some eggs in the cart. And it's not like everything's organic and everything has to be this and that. I'm like, this is like such the common sense, like, I'm taking also care of my family. Like, maybe I'm not eating the entire thing of cookies. I don't know, but I was like, yeah, like, I'm not going to deprive my family of having fun things in the house. And I'm going to enjoy fun things in the house. But like, it just is so common. So, how did you was macros a path to get to that point right there?
Yeah, it really was. When I was deep in my anti-diet era, there were a lot of things, like I said, a lot of rules that were shared and people saying that you can't lose weight, you can't do all of these things. However, on social, I was watching these people tracking macros, eating balanced meals, and keeping
Mhm.
this weight off. And I'm like, well, there's got to be some truth to this. So let's figure it out. And it really was the path of food freedom to me because I was able to lose the weight, but again, still be able to enjoy the things. And I finally got to a point where I wasn't doing that binge and restrict anymore because I knew that no matter what, I can have the cookie, I can have the thing. There's so many things in my house at this point that I probably don't eat. We usually do like one meal out a week, or sometimes it's multiple. I usually do like one untracked meal a week, and people are always intrigued to see what I'm eating. But it doesn't phase me. I'm literally just eating, and when you can balance out the calories and the macros, you feel better, and then you don't have these restrictions that are like weighing you down when you're making food decisions. And if you're a busy mom or a busy dad and you're out and about, you don't have your food with you, you can go through a drive-through and get something and feel okay about eating it.
Mhm. I've noticed that, I mean, just living in a remote area, I do that too, where it's like, okay, well, we do have to have convenience food. Like that's what has to happen at this moment. And yet just my knowledge of macros, I can kind of look at something and say like, okay, well, there's this, like, this isn't going to kill me. This is not my enemy. Like, I'm not going to, this is not the hill to die on right now. And it's not evil and terrible. I mean, like, it's also not a lifestyle. Let's just touch on, because you and I, we understand macros. You're at an expert level. I'm a still novice, but we're throwing that around as if everyone knows what it is. So maybe we should just tie that down and say, what is macros?
Okay, so when we eat food, we're eating calories, and that's energy. So when we're looking at the amount of energy that we're putting in our body, we also have to look at the amount of energy that we're expending. It's not as difficult as I'm explaining it, but this is the best way to explain it. So you're putting energy into your body, and then just being a human throughout the day, you're burning a certain amount of calories. Then you add in movement, you add in exercise. And that will depend whether you're gaining weight, whether you're maintaining your weight, or whether you're losing weight. So that's what the calories do. The macros are the foods that we're eating. So our proteins, our carbs, and our fats. And I know it seems really overwhelming to think about all of those things. However, you really start to learn about how, like, when you first start doing macros, you start to learn how your body responds to different things, and everybody responds
Mhm.
differently. So everybody's macros aren't always the same. I usually tend to start, so we're tracking those things. Again, whether you want to maintain, gain, or lose weight. But I usually start people tracking with just tracking their calories and their protein, because a lot of people are under eating on their protein, and it's really one of them. They're all important. I'm not going to say that protein is the most important, because sometimes I think that it gets too big of a has too big of an ego. No, I'm just kidding. But it is important. So I'll start my clients off with just tracking calories and protein, and then we'll slowly move into tracking all three of the macros. I always like to make these small little shifts when we're doing things because that is what will create the sustainability. So as we go, we are creating these small little shifts, and then we'll get a little bit more nuanced and we'll get a little bit more detailed along the way. But I don't want to throw it all at somebody at once because they might do good for a couple weeks, but then it's just going to be like, this is too hard. It's frustrating. I'm going to throw it all out the window.
One of the things, again, going back to your social post, I'm telling you, conscious investor, like, it's not, it is appropriate social stalking. It's exactly why you create the content. But I don't know, earlier this year, last year, you had this post and it was, if you're new to macros, just add a couple hundred calories into it. Like, don't try to deprive yourself. Don't make this hard. Like, and honestly, having worked with macros for a couple of years, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is the best advice I've ever heard. Again, common sense, like, let's set ourselves up for some success versus, oh, I'm going to have to only have X amount of calories and I have to get it in these ways. And now it's this crazy puzzle and my mind's bending and I want to quit. So I absolutely love that.
Yeah, and a lot of times what I'll have clients do is not even try to hit a number. I'm like, just let's just track what you're eating for a couple weeks because honestly, that's awareness and it's really eye-opening to see what you are consuming.
Okay, tortilla chips. That's one where I was shocked. I did buy a food scale and I'm like, no, tortilla chips, you let me down. Like, really disappointing that I couldn't eat the tortilla chips the way I wanted to eat the tortilla chips because we love chips and salsa. And I was like, oh, wow. That might be why people who go out to Mexican restaurants and they're, eating their chips, salsa, pico de gallo, and guacamole, maybe they feel a little bloated afterwards because those tortilla chips, whew.
Yeah.
So, but something else that you pointed out as we're talking about nutrition here is, and it's something, again, this is what I'm like, just how you go about this is just resonates deep with me. And that is, you were talking about carbs. Like, carbs are not the enemy, and macros really showed me carbs aren't my enemy. I need carbs. I actually need them. And I think most people are like, maybe even leaning on the, oh, I got to get my protein and I don't want carbs. And it's like, you need your carbs. So what do we say about carbs? What do
Oh,
you say?
well, I love
What's
carbs.
pasta and butter? Not anymore necessary.
Yeah. And carbs do get a bad rap. The thing is carbs are our body's preferred source of energy. And so I was actually keto for a really long time. I had a whole YouTube channel on being keto, all of the things. And what I didn't realize is that once I introduced the carbs back into my body, my brain fog went away. Like everything that they said that keto would do for me, I experienced after I brought carbs back into my life. So my brain fog went away. I had more energy. I felt like I could sustain more things. It's a key to building muscle, and muscle's like the fountain of youth. Um, and it's just you can have it in moderation. I think a lot of times too, one of the cool things about learning about macros is learning about what's in the food you're eating. So a lot of times will people be like,
Mhm.
oh, those carbs I can't have, like cake and pizza, and we were just talking about the buttered noodles, but really you're talking about food that has a lot of some carbs but a lot of fat in it. And so we don't realize how calorie dense those foods are. And it's not necessarily that the carbs are the enemy. It's like the entire package of the food with the carbs and the fats too.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah. I liked getting carbs back in my life. I never like really X anything out, but I started realizing when I started looking at labels, I'm like, oh, there's actually protein in here. There's actually
Yeah.
this in here. And actually I can get these noodles that have this and that. I'm like, wow, pasta is now, I guess it was kind of stigmatized in our house for a little bit. And now I feel like it's resurrected. Um, it's so good. So how do you've transitioned now? I mean, like, you've run the gauntlet. You've basically done it all, which I think positions you even more so as an expert. But then you hit the stage, not just at the Conscious Investor Growth Summit, but you hit the stage in your first bikini competition. Was that almost a culmination, like the crescendo of your experience, or where does this go? Because it will continue. Like, let's get into what that looks like.
So I've always had the dream of being a bodybuilder, stepping on stage since high school. However, something, probably God, it was like, you're not ready to do this yet. Like, this will probably lead you down a really dark path, because I was already down a dark path. And I just never did it. There was one time I almost committed when I was still pretty disordered with my eating with a friend of mine, but she ended up getting pregnant. And so we didn't do it. And I'm like, that probably was a sign that I didn't need to do it then. So
Right.
once I had lost the 60 pounds, I actually did 75 hard. And I'm actually not a huge proponent of 75 hard. I think that you need to be in the right spot to do it. I think that you need to have a plan to exit out of it. This is why a lot of people don't maintain their weight losses. They don't have an exit plan. But I completed it, and I was on a trip with my sister, and I was like, I'm thinking about competing. I just did 75 hard. I think I can do it. And she's like, you're in the best shape of your life. You should do it. But I was at such a great place with food that I knew that I could do it. And so I got a coach, and I prepared for an entire year. That was the other thing, is I didn't just like jump into doing like 12 weeks and then get on stage. I knew that this had to be a process, and I had to have a plan from everything that I had been through. And I was just going to step on stage one time. I did it on my birthday, but I pulled up to the place that they had the competition at, and I knew, I was like, oh, she's hooked. this this is gonna be something that's more than once. So I competed in August of 2023, and then I did my second show in June of this year. And now I have some big goals to continue on competing and just see how far I can take it. I have some boundaries with myself with competing, because of my past history is I'm not willing to do anything to get on stage. So my physical and mental health are number one always. And if it becomes something where it's taking away from other areas of my life, then I'll be done. But for right now, I'm having so much fun, and it's really awesome to have something for myself, because it's a lonely sport, and it's a slow thing. So what I find is it challenges me in every area of my life, because I have to have the patience, and then it ripples over on into my business, into my family, all of the things.
I love it. So what have you discovered? I think every time we do these, I mean, that's such a growth activity that we discover a new part of ourselves that we hadn't met that. Where, oh, she was in there this whole time. Like, that's so cool. So what are some of the personal discoveries that you've had since stepping on stage and doing the bikini competitions?
I think that just getting uncomfortable is almost like anything that you're resisting is going to open up the world for you in so many different ways. Not just, just with competing, but like I said before, it has created a ripple where I trust myself so much more. I am a very consistent person, which leads me to being consistent on social media. It leads me to be consistent in
Mhm.
other areas of my life. And it really has just it's built up a really strong relationship with myself. And I think that's what I discovered more than anything, because I didn't really trust myself before. I mean, it slowly started to happen as I was working on my healing journey, but going into competing, that trust was built really, really quickly.
Yeah. I love that. This is one of my, I would call it a healthy addiction. Is I really like stepping into the discomfort because, just like you said, and you've experienced it. So it's like, once you experience the byproduct of stepping into discomfort, it's like, where's the next discomfort? Like, let's go do another one of those. It's almost like when you're a child and you're afraid to ride the roller coaster or one of the drop rides, and you do it and you're like, oh, I can do that. What else can I do? It's so exciting.
Yeah, and I actually have a funny story. I believe you asked me to speak. It was like a month after I competed for the first time, and the first time that I competed, when I got on stage, I blacked out. I went through the movements and everything, but I literally, like, don't remember what happened on stage. I didn't place at that show. And then you asked me to speak on stage. And at that point, I was like, yeah, I want to keep getting on stages. And so my coach and I at the time, we used your stage to break my fear of getting on stage.
Yes. I love that. I love that. And then how did your next competition go? I can't did you end up placing on this next one?
I ended up getting sixth in the open. So
Nice.
that is all women of all ages. And I'm 39 now. So I was up there with really young ladies. There was more women in the 35 plus category than there was in the lower, but yeah, I did end up getting sixth, and I really wanted to do a couple competitions this past year, but my sister was getting married, my sister-in-law got married, like there were so many things. I'm like, I'm not going to put the pressure on myself to compete during this busy time. So I went into my off season and getting ready for next year.
I really value that in Conscious Investor. I'm sure you feel the sentiment, right? Do you hear like Ashley's sticking to her convictions of I'm going to do this competition. I'm going to do this, but not at the sacrifice of these other elements of life. And so it's just like the level of integrity and discipline and determination to like just like nope, this is how I'm going to go about this. Is so awesome. I'm really excited for you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I really think too when you're thinking about your health journey or your weight loss journey, think about that. Like, are if you are at a point where you're like, I'm willing to do anything, like, is that actually really healthy approach to this? Because it's something that you're going to need to continue on. The weight loss part of that is just the beginning. It's really how you're going to reverse out of that fat loss phase and maintain it. And if we're willing to do anything, you're not going to be willing to do anything for forever. And that's not going to be sustainable.
Oh, that's so true. I used to wake up there's like I don't know, 6 months, 3, 6 months where I woke up at 3 in the morning. 'Cause that's just what I had to do to make the transition I was trying to make, but I told my I promised myself, I'm like, "This is not a lifestyle. This is a very temporary moment in time, and you will never repeat." And now I'm like, I don't even wanna wake up. I used to wake up then I used to wake up at 4, and then it was 4:30, and now I have happily, quite merrily settled in. I'm like, 5 o'clock is a beautiful time to wake up.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful time. Anything before that, why? Why? I like my
Yeah.
so but I found that gauge, so good to know, like, what works for us with our health, with our, nutrition, with our sleep patterns, with our relationships, with everything. Ashley, it's been awesome. It's been awesome hanging out with you again. I absolutely adore the content that you create and the common sense and just the way you cheer people on. You're truly a champion for creating healthy people, where it's sustainable, it's doable, and there's no shame. And it's just, it feels light. And I think that's what draws me into, just continuing to just like love following my friend's journey is like, it just feels light and effortless and real, not like glossed over veneers. Like, let me like have everything perfect and it's all staged. It's like, no, this is real life. And so like, thanks for putting that out there in the world. It's so necessary.
You're so welcome. Thank you for having me on.
It's so great. How do you want to connect up? And do you have anything else you want to say to the conscious investor?
Yes. So you can find me on all the social medias. It's Ashley Beeman, or on Instagram, it's that Ashley Beeman. But I'm pretty easy to find. Come follow me, ask questions. Like, I am an open book. I love to help people. My main mission is really to simplify the process of things. And I heard this analogy. I want to share this. I heard this analogy a couple weeks ago about, we can get so caught up in everything that's spread on social, and a lot of things that get shared are attention grabbing things. And we think, oh my gosh, I have to worry about these ingredients. I have to worry about my hormones, my cortisol, my insulin, all of these things. However, we need to start and lay a foundation. So what I heard was, think about it this way. If you're on the Titanic and it's sinking and you're out looking for a lifeboat, but your husband is rearranging the furniture on the deck, aren't you gonna be frustrated? And so focusing on all of those minor things, I'm not saying that they're gonna have a time and a place where you're probably gonna have to look at some of those minor details. But for right now, focus on what you can do, because the work that you put in now is going to pay off later, even if it's just simple little shifts in your daily life.
That's such a good analogy. I
Yeah.
love that. I am going to be borrowing that.
So I borrowed it from somebody. I can't even remember who it was. So
I love it. Conscious investor, I appreciate you. This is common sense. This is have the freedom, like personal freedom. This is where it is. We don't need other people telling us the rules. And I'm going to double down on this. I remember when I was a kid, and actually, probably you might remember this. It's like butter is bad. Use margarine. My family never went down that path. It's like, no, we're just going to have real food, like real stuff. And there have been so many fads. Eggs are bad. Don't eat eggs. And so like culture is just stigmatizes different foods at different times, and they go out of fad, and it's weird. So just stick with common sense and don't stress and stay on the Titanic, focusing on the bigger things and the little things as necessary.
yes, absolutely.
Well, Conscious Master, please take a moment, leave an honest rating and review. It's a free way to support the show. Hit subscribe if you're new. I'm so happy that you're here. I hope that you enjoyed this show. Hang out with us. Hit the subscribe, follow, whatever the button is, so that you catch the next episode, which will be a mindset episode on a Monday, because every week we have Monday mindset, Thursday interviews with amazing, extraordinary experts. So I look forward to seeing you around here in the future. And until next time, live in the fullness of your freedom.